like 6 brothers who did the structural work within the mosque. We did not have the support of the community. I think the reason we didn't have support, so much of the support of the community was because they weren't really aware that the school was coming. No one had really faith that we would be able to pull this off. Even I didn't have the faith initially, to be honest with you, because it was down to the wire, 2.5 weeks prior to the opening, all right? And we did it. We did it.
So that was in August that you were planning the,
prior to that?
Prior to that, when did you guys start? When did you start getting acceptance from the city that you can go ahead and work on this?
About that same period of time. We had talked to them prior to that. The brothers had, I was called into the school towards the end of the process. When I went in, they had absolutely nothing together. And I wondered, I said, how are they going to do this? Do you know you need X, Y, Z? I mean, you have to have, there's such things as in the bathroom, the sinks have to be at a certain height. Nothing was in place, right? So I called it, they had called it the department, the superintendent.
I would like to your comments about of course, part of your experience was basically in establishing this school, but in general as a minority. And fitting with the other, not with the community, or with the other minority groups as well, you know, like for instance, the do.
So there's...
Okay, people talk about again. You can come out.
Also the environmentalists, and don't necessarily that it goes back to the environment. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Let
me see if there's anything in it.
As environmentalists, as other ones.
Yeah, that was again an explanation. With the lion.
Because of what they can offer to a building, to a structure, but it doesn't have to, the import of those materials doesn't have to be at such a large scale properly.
Yeah.
Destroys it.
Okay, maybe the other one too.
Does anyone have any further questions?
That's good.
Yeah, I had one question for language for you. In which language do you actually feel at home? You have I'm thinking of the Algerians. The Algerians went first with Negritude. We had a Pan-African movement which was in French. Then came a movement against being French, and Islamism tried to push French out. However, people in Algeria never really spoke the Arabic of the Quran, and now there is a debate, ongoing debate, in which language should we actually publish, and in which one should we speak. Césaire is, yeah,
and
it had a Marxist aspect.
Languages and everything. So
I studied a bunch of languages, but I envy you, and I have Arabic books, but I have nothing to do with BBC.
Kind of would love to learn Chinese. I think
I've learned Japanese.
Oh dear.
Okay, here I am at the SUNY Binghamton, now known as Binghamton University, former Harper College, former Triple Cities, former who knows what, with my beloved and esteemed professor, Parviz Morewedge, who I quote continuously from everything. I've learned more from this one single man than any other person in my life, adult life, child life, whatever. And he's the most respected person that I know. He's chairman of this conference that's being held here today of Islamic philosophy and Chinese American philosophers, and as well as others. And I can't say how much the influence, the good influence that this man has had on my life.
I just want to say that I've been a mirror that reflects the goodness of Larry back to him, even a crack bearer. So the shine will not be too much to hurt his eyes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shalom.
Okay, and I'm going to move over it so you get the whole thing. You might, on your own video, you may have to stop it, pause it, and then to get... Okay, and just one more. Hold on one second. Okay. I got a little bit of your shoulder in that, but you don't mind. Okay.
Oh, I thought you were trying to...
I live in Utica, I went to school here. I'm an alumnus.
That's why you're interested.
And just tell me when you'd like me to begin.
Yes, I think I'm ready.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So I can just-
Anytime you want to begin.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to do one thing. If you.
This is just an illustration of some of my preliminary work, and it's going to be part of the manuscript that I'm writing on it. So I don't have anything published yet. I was just trying to have the audience being able to appreciate maybe better what I was talking about if they could already look at some pictures. But I'm planning on using them in that written documentation. And this is brickwork and adobe work. This is vine bridges, pont de liane, they call it. And these are the different influences of the culture in the actual contemporary making of shapes and form and urban and rural plannings. You can see there is mass, which are part of this. So here how the traditional ways of making villages, patterns and design concept are influencing the contemporary urban places. This is how small villages started and how it is now, today. And also in just the making of the entire plans, whether it's in rural or urban areas. And this is just some ways of showing how these spiritual beliefs and practices are very, very ancient and are still being practiced today. Many of them very much unchanged.
Whenever you want to begin.
Yes, this is the country. It's in southern Gabon. Then I did those 2 case studies among the Bafounous people. And this is where I went and looked at these 2 ancient methods here, the southern part of it. And I was showing some example of rural and urban throughout the country, and mostly in the capital. Most of the urban pictures are referring to the capital, Libreville, right here. It's right on the ocean.
Okay, got it. Go ahead. Okay.
I have brought in some live objects, just so that people can think you missed that part, and appreciate maybe more of these things that I'm talking about, or that are so far away and that are very different from this Western culture. So that was just some illustrative things that I brought along with me. And this is the main spiritual mask of these people, the Bafounou from southern Gabon. It's their mask right here. It's a Punu mask.
Do you want to just hold on? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Just,
raise the mask up.
okay. I'll get a still. I'll get
Yes, because
On each hand.
Okay, let me get a still of that. Hold on, I want to get you in it. No. You just pull the camera case. Yeah. Okay. And okay. Okay, the video part. If you want to talk about any of that, or.
and these were just illustration of I was talking about the multicultural heritage of that part of Africa and the rest of the continent, really. And I was illustrating with these how in Christian churches a lot of the music is not always done with the traditional organ instrument, but with these African traditional instrument as opposed to the Christian traditional instrument.
Do it again. Just
Oh, these, yeah. They have different songs. There's many of these, I believe, in some Hispanic cultures, Latin cultures, they call it maracas. I don't know how you guys call them. Yes. And this is just a small little calabash with some shells, and it's just a beautiful handwork. These here are passports and I was explaining how the external appearance of buildings can also illustrate the influences of ancient ways of doing things, and how these colors are represent the Cameroon part. And in those regions you will find natives use these colors, provided that they come from these specific ethnic groups. And so the external part of the architectural landscape is also showing those influences. In ancient time, they used to be used as passport. We called passport. And it was because people who were representing themselves and their region with these colors and those patterns were carrying those. This is other passports, they're a little bit bigger. And they would pass from one region to another with these passports, instead of an ID or with a name or a social security number, or this was enough. This was a passport. This was a pass. And so these colors can be seen in some buildings, in some. I'm just trying to make the point that everything is so intricately linked between the ancient ways of thinking and the contemporary making of shapes and form in contemporary Africa. This is also another interesting object, and it's a basket, hand waved, and it's also coming from that area. So it's the patterns are very specific to that ethnic group and to the groups, ethnic groups within that region. And so this is like, for them, it's like if someone was reading a book in a Western context, they would give information as to who made the basket and what it represents, and it has its spiritual presence as well within the artistic work. And this was something else that was interesting, that attachment here, because I wanted to show maybe the richness of those environmental material that are being used. This is a lian, one of those vines, which they use for this purpose, and which they use to make those bridges that connect villages and other hard to link places without having to build roads within the forest. So this is what the lian is, and there's nothing else but this in those bridges, and they all connected through very, not complicated, but I would say very ingenious knotting languages, which only, which for the most part, the traditional also, the other thing I wanted to point out was regarding this work here, this ancient method, which has to do with adobe and fired mud-made construction material and the fired ones. And this is a work that involves the women gender of the population of the area. So it makes it very interesting to see the important role that women play in the shaping of the landscape by making the primary building material for these constructions, for instance, which are still very, 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 very well widespread in this region and other places in the world, although I don't know whether they are as alive as they are here in this part of the world, in Africa. And that's about it. I was showing how those ancient methods are a good base for inspiration to newer technologies. And these are illustrations of how they're being used today to make other type of building that respond to more, to newer needs. They came up with stabilized brick to enhance the strength of the material and construction material that they're making, so that it can be applied to multiple stories construction and things like that. And also, they keep referring to the practice of these ancient building material making to maintain and preserve landmarks in very, very ancient buildings, such as this church here, which is the oldest church in Gabon, first Christian oldest church in Gabon, in Libreville. Yeah, this right here, I have here. This is the urban landscape. It's Libreville, the capital city, and this is rural landscape, as it was yesterday, as it is today. Very much unchanged in the decoration, the bark construction, and exterior decoration part today, because again they linked to the spiritual meaning, which hasn't changed through the ages. That these were some illustration of ritual ceremonies, and there are ritual ceremonies that are open ceremonies, often mask dance ceremonies, and then there's closed ceremonies that are for initiations, that are sacred ceremonies and involve a specific group of people with a specific spiritual function within the community. This is a master of all those ceremonies. In this part of Central Africa, we call it Nganga, and it's a personage that is a little bit everywhere in Africa, and people call it differently in other continents, but we call it Nganga, and as you can see, this is how Nganga used to be, and this is how Nganga is still today. And it plays a very important function in the society, whether it's as a healer, as a spiritual leader, consultant, and a person who has to keep, and to whom is being given by very, very ancient all the secret spiritual powers, sacred spiritual powers. So he's the master of ceremony of the closed secret societies, initiations, ceremonies. I think that's about the palm tree, the real palm tree, in the sense that it's the palm tree that carries the palm nuts. And this is how it used to be, the nuts used to be retrieved, and they're still being retrieved the same way, and they've been used in a lot of traditional dishes to make sauce and cook vegetable with the fruit, the pulp of the nut, and the oil of the nut. The oil is also being used for hygiene purposes and very good for the skin and hair and things like that.
Deal with life situations. It deals with morality, with eschatology, with other things, because there was no.
Okay.
Okay, here I am at the reception, the evening reception on Saturday for the Conference of Islamic Studies at the University of Binghamton. In a minute, I hope to get to talk to the ambassador of the UN from Egypt, as well as some other countries.
If you like Center on Democratic Performance, who will introduce the speakers, and by that time we hope to have this entity working. Otherwise, Professor Mazrui will be the first talk, and Professor Ply will follow. Ed? Thank you, sir.
I've never met a microphone that I've not had to raise up in my life. On behalf of the Center on Democratic Performance here at Binghamton University, and will continue to prove to be extremely stimulating and interesting. And from the perspective of somebody whose primary focus is on the contemporary development of political institutions. And I have to say how exciting it is for me to be a part of this conference, which brings together a focus on ancient philosophy and medieval history and the past. My task this evening is a very happy one, and that is to introduce the speakers that are in London. So this is quite clearly somebody who lives a dialogue among cultures in his daily life. Dr. Paya will be making a presentation entitled, "Can Dialogue Between Civilizations Serve the Human Family?"
Just kidding.
The other main presentation this evening will be from our own Dr. Ali Mazrui here at Binghamton University, the Institute of Global Cultural Studies. And his talk will be Contact Among Civilizations in the Global Age. He is at the Bosnian Mission to the United Nations.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening to you. Let me first offer my apology for the delay. Sometimes these things happen with new technology. It's a great pleasure for me to be with you on this occasion. Tonight I'm going to talk about dialogue in a real world pre-exotic pursuit or sine qua non. This theme actually emerged from a real question which I wanted myself to answer.